Welcome. Thank you for joining today. This is a really special program this afternoon. I have got here the one, the only, my dear friend,
My
brother,
brother.
and human design master, Ahram Arya. Welcome.
Thank you, brother. So awesome to sit with you.
Indeed, I'm so happy. I'm really happy you're here. He's does amazing stuff, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about it in just a second. And he's going to do some live readings and share some stuff. I find what he does fascinating, and I hope you will too. So, thank you for joining. And just a reminder, we are live, so we will be absolutely answering any questions that you've got, or what have you. So feel free to drop a note in the chat. Let us know you're here, and we'll say hello. So, with that, Aram, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what is human design?
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about human design today, and I'm looking forward to sharing what that looks like for some of your audience. And if anybody wants to know the dirt on Owen Ward, we might get into that as well. So that's going to be fun. But about me, so I am a coach and human design guide. I work in the arena of coaching and personal development in general. Specifically, I work in the dimension of spirit as well. So where that all comes together for me is I like to say that I coach that the flow state, cultivating that sense of flow and purpose, and spirituality and creativity are all the same thing. They're all the same frame of mind. And if we can cultivate that higher mind state that has us in flow, we have access to making better decisions. We have access to being more creative. We have access to live intentionally.
Got it. So what does that mean to live intentionally? Like, if I feel like I'm just living along just fine. Like before I spoke with you, I got my first reading. I could have said, "Yeah, sure, I'm living intentionally," and then realized that I really wasn't. Like, what does it mean to live intentionally?
Well, I think that's different for different people. But I think what happens with most people with the human experience is we get somewhere with what we think we know or think we feel about ourselves and about the world, and that knowledge or direction or purpose gets us only so far, and then things stop working, and then we get stuck. Emotionally, things happen. We go through stuff. And at that point is a golden opportunity to learn about ourselves so that we can reformulate our orientation to what we want, discover new things about what we might want, and create a new trajectory for our life in that direction.
Gotcha. So, what what would be like a telltale sign in my life that it's like this is a good time to go get my human design read? Because I'm thinking like if I'm in it, I may not recognize it, and a lot of people watching may be in it and not necessarily know it. Because I certainly didn't know what I didn't know, and if I wasn't fortunate to have a ROM tell me, "No, you man, you got to check this out," I
Yeah.
probably might not have done it. So what is something that someone could see in their life like, oh, this is a sign like I need to go get the tune up here?
That's a great question. It's a great question. So human design, I'll just segment that for a second. I like to think of human design as the most powerful tool available to know yourself, to be your best self, to make your best decisions. I like to say it has an extraordinary and familiar element simultaneously. It's sort of like if you knew the secret codes of being yourself, wouldn't that be good information to have? So
Ah,
it's kind of like I had a similar experience when I found human design. Human design is a synthesis of various different ancient philosophies and knowledge that is synthesized into a tool for you to make better decisions. So put that in a box for a second. It's sort of like if for me, and I think for both of us, it fell into the category of you don't know what you don't know. I mean, how would you have figured out that this information might be super valuable to you if you didn't know about it, right? But
right.
so to answer your question, right? If you are a searcher, if you are a seeker, if you reject maybe organized religions, or you have a bad taste in your mouth about someone trying to lead you towards higher purpose or God, or any organized higher purpose or way of being that you just doesn't jive with you, and yet you still feel like there's something more to life than what we physically perceive, then this is for you.
Okay. Got it. So tell us a little bit about then, before we dive into what exactly it is, tell us a little bit about how you came into it. You mentioned your story of encountering human design. How did all that happen?
Yeah, it's almost too ridiculous to believe, except it actually happened to me. So I'll start with that. So I was, it's a couple of years ago. I was driving out in Arizona through the desert. I stayed at an Airbnb. I basically just went out to the desert to clear my head. And the woman my Airbnb host, was super spiritual. She's like, "Hey, have you had your human design read or done?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" And she's like, "Hold on." And she asked for my birth information. So the first concept that you kind of have to get over, if you have some resistance to it, is the idea that we were all coded by the universe at the moment we were born. So this is this astrological piece to the timestamp of your unique characteristics. So I gave her my birth date and time. She went over to the computer. She brought back a piece of paper, and it had a graph, which I'll show you. We'll flip to in a second so we can talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
But the body graph is a graphical representation and literally a map of chakras, gates, aspects of the I Ching. And it was kind of really interesting to me. I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is super precise. What is this? It had all this jargon and all of these, stuff I didn't understand. So I began slowly to look at it, to research it on my own. And long story short, the facts, the knowledge that it downloaded to me from doing my own research was so profoundly spot on and so profoundly life-changing for me that I was just like a magnet on this. I was compelled to just dive headfirst into it. And then within a few months, I sort of realized that I have some gifts and talents about how to explain this to other people. And then it kind of took off from there.
Whew. All right. So when it has taken off, so in explaining it to other people, what does that mean? Like, how have you put it together?
In my sessions, things can get emotional because huge weights can be lifted. Amazing personal insights can be discovered. It's really cool because I get to show someone the things that they know innately about themselves, but perhaps they've never been put into words. And when you get to start being the version of yourself that's productive and inspired and amazing, and simultaneously you stop being the person that you've been conditioned to be, it's liberating.
Whew. Okay. So is there an example that you will share that when you learned it, something that you discovered that you were conditioned to be, that was against your human design?
Yeah. So I love talking this to people. I love talking about human design to people that have an empirical mind, that have a somewhat logical framework, because it's really appealing because it gives you a logical way to think about your different intelligences, to empower you to make decisions in a way that are aligned to your energetic makeup. So what does that mean? For me, it means that I actually make decisions with my emotions. It means that my emotions are actually one of my superpowers. So most of my life, because I was fighting this, I knew I had a really strong emotional sensitivity to myself and to other people. But I never saw it as a real asset. I always kind of saw it as a problem, because I'm like, my head, I should be doing this. Logically, this makes sense. I should be going over there and making these decisions. But my emotions might be at odds with it. So what my human design allowed me to do is to realize that once I go through my process of understanding a problem, or what direction I want to send my life in, or what important decision I need to make, my job is to check in with my emotions and feel into the ups and downs of that wave. And when I allow that process to complete, I know my truth. And my emotions never steer me wrong when I use them correctly.
Got it. How interesting. So to have something that one moment was a burden, a problem, and then the next moment to be one of your greatest assets. What an amazing discovery.
What I'll offer is this. I tell people this all the time. I ask them, why is it okay when you're giving someone advice? Let's say it's a really good friend of yours. Let's say if it's a family member. Why is it okay to sometimes say, hey, you need to be really logical about this. You got to think this through. And other times you tell them, well, why don't you go with your gut? What's your gut say? Well, why don't you feel into it? How do you feel about it? Now, which one are you supposed to pay attention to?
Both.
Kind of depends, right? Kind of depends. Or you're screwed, right?
This is like the whole thing of life, right? Wow, so great. So that chaos, there is an answer to that chaos. There is an answer to all of this. Is a straightforward plan with human design. Got it. Well, let's dive in a little bit, shall we? Let's take a look at what it is that you do.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen with everybody real quick.
Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to adjust our screen so that we can see what Ahram is up to. Okay.
How's that? Does that work?
It looks like it.
Okay, so Owen Ward, this is you. We've done this before, but we haven't really looked at it together in a while. So this is Owen J. Ward, a being of 9 different chakras, different energies. He happens to be a generator whose strategy is to respond, and he has something called Sacral Authority. So I'm going to translate all that real quick.
Okay.
Just say and ask you this. Basically, for this man right here, his job to make his best decisions is to filter things, with his mind, figure things out a little bit, understand where he's at. But ultimately, when he needs to make a decision, Owen, your advice is to go with your gut, feeling. So my first question to you is, when you have a gut feeling, how do you experience that?
How do I experience that? I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer you. Give me one quick second, because I'm realizing that in our adjustment here, I don't have my camera up, and I certainly would hate for anyone to be uncomfortably receiving these questions. So give me 1 second here.
If you need me to stop the share, just let me know.
Oh, no. We are all good. I'm just going to lay this in on top. And if this doesn't work, then I might just use this opportunity to sneak away. But let me see if I can make this work. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm going to get it here while we're live, but we'll continue. Okay, so you had your question.
Yeah, so my question is, how do you experience a gut feeling?
How I experience a gut feeling, I guess I experience is like a or a like a sort of a guttural noise almost.
Right. So the freedom for you is that you get to go with your gut. What if life is actually so simple that you get to follow your gut response when making important decisions?
Amazing. It's a huge load off. Like just even the thought to be able to get to just trust my own instincts, and then that helps me. And I remember us talking about this, and I've tried it, and it freaking works.
So if you're like Owen, then you have what's called Sacral Authority, which is this red box here, which represents your second chakra. This is your life force energy. So Owen's job is to follow his gut, but not in such a way where he's going out there and trying to make it happen, where he's just going out and trying a bunch of stuff. In such a way where when situations arise, he's going to trust his gut in response. So you've been doing this for a while. You've been playing with this experiment for a while. What does that mean to you, to respond to things instead of going out there and making them happen?
Well, it feels a little bit more like being in a flow state, I suppose. What it really means to me is like it has been a sort of a release of control, a release of trying to like stock up a whole bunch of answers or what have you for things that are going to come up. And then like I have often found myself, just even the thought of planning ahead on something can be very like a frustrating feeling for me. And trying to predict what all is going to happen, but I know like in the moment I can really, really do great stuff. So yeah, to me it means a little bit more about just trusting in the moment, in the flow state.
Yeah, being in the moment, absolutely. Okay, so that we can jump back and see your pretty face, I'm just going to show the audience what we're doing today, and that is something called the Pearl sequence. Without getting into a bunch of detail about that, this is basically a way of looking at the wisdom that's in the I Ching. I can explain what that is too, but basically this is not a reading. This is not me pulling information out of thin air about Owen. This is knowledge that is codified in a book that anyone can reference, but what's important is that you understand the relationships of these cosmic forces and how they impact your life, and that's where I come in.
Whew, cosmic forces. All right. Okay. Well, so thank you for that. So what exactly is like? So the idea with the gates and whatnot, and the idea the idea is that what is it that at your specific like how is this different from astrology? I guess is my question.
Yeah, super good question. So the first thing I'll offer is that I was never into astrology before I found human design. And the reason is I never found it to be precise enough to actually do anything with. It was interesting. You know, I'm a Sagittarius, if that means anything to your audience here, but it really didn't mean a whole lot to me. It didn't guide me or wasn't an asset really in any way to know the stuff about my astrology. It just seemed mystical and inexact and more about feeling than about doing anything with it. That's why human design is so appealing, because it gives you actual, tangible, repeatable instructions to be your best self and make your best decisions. So to get to your question, the astrological piece is like this. The astrological piece is more or less the timestamp. It's more or less saying that the moment you were born, the universal forces of the different planets were in this arrangement, and that specific arrangement of those forces imprinted you with unalterable characteristics that you have for life.
Got it. Okay, so one of the things that you mentioned in there was about like the generator, and so the idea of going out and making stuff or responding to things. What are these different types, and like what kind of different people are there out there?
Yeah, exactly. So I think about it like this. To me, the foundation of the universe is represented in what's called the I Ching. The I Ching is an ancient Chinese system of knowledge. So if you want to think about the architecture of the universe as the I Ching, human design is your personal tool to know what to do with it as a human being. It's sort of like if the I Ching was a library, then Human Design is your library card.
Got it. Okay, got it. It's like reading the Matrix.
Right. It's your special code for what to do with yourself in this life. And wouldn't that be a relief if you got a new set of instructions versus what your parents told you or your boss told you or someone else who sent you down the wrong path?
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's so good.
So the really cool part is that imagine that library of knowledge of the universe. And now you've got this decoder ring, library card, key to the matrix, whatever you want, whatever analogy you want to use. There are 4 energetic types of people based on the arrangement or the coordination of the different energy systems. So the most common type is like you and me, we're generators. What all that means is that in a tribal, archetypal way, you and me represent the life force of the tribe. We like slow and steady processes. We find meaning in our work, and we make contributions to society through the meaning of our work. That's most people. There's 3 other types called manifestors, projectors, and reflectors that are a little bit different and do things differently. So if you're interested, manifestors, their whole MO is that they're the instigators. They just sort of create things and do things quickly to kind of get the rest of us moving. And they're not always right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong, good or bad. They're just instigators. Projectors are types who basically help everybody else do what they do better. So these are guides. These are people who are really good natural administrators, natural coordinators. They're catalysts. And then reflectors are the last type. They're the last energy type, and they're really open. They make exceptional advisors and mirrors reflecting truth to other people.
Excellent. It sounds so cool. It sounds so cool. Like, just to think, I'd never even heard of this delineation of different people before, but it makes so much sense now, especially when we think about it. Like, wow, we are a giant tribe. The United States is a giant tribe. Humanity is a giant tribe. All right.
Yeah, and I think that's really good advice for things that we're facing right now as people, as a nation, as communities. One of the reasons I really love Human Design is it because it invites us to look at our communities as, new tribes, neo-tribes, to think about the tribal part of being a human being that's missing in our culture right now. This is one way to access it.
Gotcha. Oof, thank you. If you are just joining us, I'm sitting here with Ahram Arya, a human design master, and my dear friend and teammate and brother. So at this point, and a reminder, we are live, so if you have any questions or want to share anything, feel free to do so. But at this point, Ahram, I think you've got some stuff. If you wanna share with us what you've got.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is share something for Owen that I do in my sessions. So in my sessions, the amount of human design that's available that'll send you in different directions of self-discovery and purpose are vast. So I hone those into different experiences. In the first session I might do, we'll talk about how to separate you from the not you. The you you've always known and is productive for you versus that other guy. We'll talk about strategy and authority, which is how you go about making decisions. We'll talk about some other aspects of higher purpose that illuminate what the stars literally say are your guiding forces or directions or sort of archetypes where you find the most meaning. After that, it can get really specific. And my specialty, my passion is the I Ching, is these specific lessons. So what we're going to do right now is get into something that's called the Pearl sequence, which is done by a man named Richard Rudd, who's another human design disciple. So what we're going to do with Owen is align some of these lessons around higher purpose, and particularly about vocation, particularly about prosperity. So this is like about making money too. This is about how do you channel yourself to live your higher purpose and call in the most prosperity. So for Owen, for you, brother, it starts with your sun sign. So the archetype for you is like this. You shine in the world. You are most expressed as yourself when you are kind of commanding the higher principles in a tribal hierarchy. So in other words, you need to be in a position of power that is allocating goods and services, food, shelter, everything people need for the good of humanity. So the idea is that you're not really going to be able to express yourself fully or even fully emotionally unless you're in a position as a power broker helping people get what they need. How's that feel?
It feels great. At first, it sounds awesome, and then on the flip side, it means a ton of responsibility, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So that's something that we had visited a while back. What is that in the path and trajectory of your life? What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me?
How's that shown up?
Yeah, it shows up in many places. I often find myself in leadership positions in organizations. I've been on a number of different boards and, various, even in our men's organization as well, and various things like that. Yeah. And I, just sort of, I do well speaking in front of a lot of people.
It also says that you are uniquely talented to handle yourself and the business of others during a crisis.
Got it. Like now.
Exactly. It says that basically when things get difficult, when there's periods of revolt, revolution, when there are big changes afoot in society, you're someone to look to handle it.
All right, on it.
That's pretty powerful information. Like if if the thing about you that I know, because we're friends, is you don't really run from a fight. Like you like being in the fire, working on whatever needs to be worked on. So that provides a lot of purpose and meaning for you. So whatever you're doing, there's got to be that element in it.
Of the fire, yeah. And there most certainly is, no question. I don't sit still for very long. That's true.
And another piece of this for you comes into picture with the planet of Jupiter. So Jupiter represents the laws and the rulers of the solar system. So whether you believe in all that or doesn't matter. The idea is this. The idea is the sun is the biggest force, the life-giving force that we experience. Jupiter is the second biggest entity. So it's sort of the biggest fish in the pond. So it gives us the framework of laws that we have to live by. And for you, it shows up in your sensitivity of marketing and sales, specifically in sensing what people need, how to sell it to them, even when they don't know what's best for them.
Well, good, because that's pretty much what I do all day long.
Yeah, so that's perfect, right? Because as long as I've known you, you've had this mission to create your brand of awareness around this chosen path of marketing services for the benefit of everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I do believe that it is the most important thing. I do believe that it is important that everybody has their voice and uses it effectively.
Mm. And then in terms of vocation, this is sort of your lesson around how best to expend that energy, that fire inside you. This one says that you're someone who needs to involve yourself in creative pursuits. Literally, the mental exercise of dealing with confusion and sorting through a bunch of concepts that don't make sense so that you can find the gold. That process of confusion and synthesis and distillation, it sort of describes how best for you to spend your energy in your work.
Gotcha. Well, and that one helps a lot when you shared about the whole idea of just confusion and thoughts in my head. Like, that has always been a thing. It's just been constant, like almost noise. And I had believed that was just what everybody did and how it was. And I would always be very confused. Like, why do I seem to be like so far out with these bizarre, random ideas? And when you shared with me that this is my human design, it helped me to take a look at, again, something that I looked at as a problem and recognize it as something that I could use to my benefit. The idea of trying to fight off confusion and now leaning into it instead. That's a revolutionary thought, but it has changed a lot for me.
Exactly. So for you, that's some of the gold, which is what if confusion, not knowing what to do, is not a problem?
Which is great, because who does know what to do, right? Right? What are we doing here? Well, we have some ideas, right? But that's another cast. But yeah, like it is.
Look at confusion as a necessary part of your mental process. It's sort of like writer's block. Like, it's sort of any creative process for someone like you is going to go through these phases where, nothing's good, nothing's happening, my ideas aren't working, I don't know what to do. But just the iterative process the iterations is key to seeing yourself through any of life's challenges. Now that might sound like, okay, that's good advice for anybody, and it is. But this is literally how you do it.
Thank you.
And this last one I love as well. So this last lesson is about how you ground everything. This is about your contribution to society, to culture. And this is the archetype of being a guardian or custodian or a tribal lawmaker. So when you think about your life and you think about important experiences, and I say guardian, custodian, tribal lawmaker, caring for the less fortunate, what comes up for you?
Yeah, it feels like what I have been doing. I've done. Yeah, this is interesting. It brings up, I've done a lot of work in the nonprofit space, which I thrive in, and then at the same time, I almost actively worked to make sure that wasn't everything that I was doing, but I always have this draw back there, and to just the idea of helping other people, especially underdogs. Oh man, I love an underdog. I guess I recognize them pretty well. I know the feeling.
So this is really interesting. Whenever I work with powerful people or successful people, it's really no surprise that all of these resonate really strongly. What human design can do for you is just show you an alignment. Okay, put this thing I'm really good at in this box, and that thing I'm really good at, put that over here. Okay, now I see how it all works together, and that's where the insights come from. Basically, this gives you permission to kind of only focus in these areas and stop doing everything else.
stop doing all the stuff that everybody else who doesn't get the human design had instructed me to do, because that's what they understood. Amazing.
Yeah. And it's also really liberating for people. I use this in my own life all the time. We're so tied to achievements. We're so tied to specific events. Human design doesn't work that way. It shows us how we do what we do. And if you can constantly return to the how, that's how you get back in the flow state. That's how you get back to creating what you want.
Whew. The secrets. This is the secret. What a relief. It's like crazy. Even some of the stuff is familiar because we've talked about this, you and I, before, but even just hearing it again, there's something innate. There's something primal in it that sort of just flicks on to think about, like you said, aligning with these behaviors. And this is weird stuff. It's like no one ever would come out and be like, yes, you are the tribal lawmaker and you give out food in crisis. Like, there's no class for that. There's no instruction for that. And frankly, anybody typically in our society who would get that kind of a reading is usually at risk, right? Like that you become a target. Totally. At least, right? So this is it's like it's crazy stuff. Like, that's what I kind of love the most about the human design. And you mentioned about the astrological differences and connection, but in a lot of astrology, I'll find it's very general and vague. Like, you're going to do this and that and the other thing. What I love about human design is that the feedback that you've got, it's so raw and it's so unfiltered. It's almost mechanical.
Yeah, we're just kind of going over the surface right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can get really uncomfortable and direct and pointed, and it's not always rosy. And that's why I really like it too, because helping people through some of these really difficult lessons, that's where the growth and the healing is.
Yeah. Well, you had indicated there was one thing that you had shared on that Pearl sequence with me about that certain elements manifest themselves positively and some manifest negatively. And there's one that it talked about how, like you're saying, brokering things and brokering change.
Yeah.
One of the ones was about that change means throwing out the old one way or the other. And the positive way of doing that is to honor the past so that it moves smoothly into the future, as opposed to hard cut on the past, scorch the earth, and then potentially damage the effects moving on, which is good to know because in many cases had been indeed to scorch the earth. Right.
When you're in a position of power, whether you're a CEO or in your family, or when something has to get done and an uncomfortable change must be made, do you have the awareness to do so magnanimously, in gratitude, to make it not about you, so that we move everything where it needs to move without getting our personal emotions involved, without being vindictive? This is super hard stuff. Mm-hmm. But if you can recognize that this is a pattern for you, man, what a relief. Are you kidding me?
Right. And then just to practice to do it better when it happens again and again and again.
Exactly. Because there's no avoiding this characteristic. There's no avoiding the essence of this part of you. Your purpose is to align yourself to the virtuous side of it rather than the shadow side.
Simple enough. Simple enough. This is amazing. Ahram, I can't thank you enough, man. This stuff is so magic. And it's just what a relief. How does someone get in touch with you? Like, how does it work to get in touch with you to get the deeper reading and what's available?
Yeah, no problem. The easiest thing to do is go to my website. It's simply my name, ahramarya.org. I'm sure that's somewhere on your information there, Owen.
Yes, sir.
You can also check me out with just my name, AHRAMARYA, on Instagram. And I also have a human design specific blog on Instagram called Human Design Tribe for all the human design nerds.
Awesome. And for everybody here, I'm just putting a link to ahramarya.org in the chat, so you can click on that and just go get your look. You've already seen it. You've watched it. You just watch the surface get scratched, and you already see like this is some real stuff. So I can't recommend him enough. Please go check out ahramarya.org. Thank you, Ahram.
Thanks,
is there
brother.
anything else you want to share with us before we sign off? Anything else you want to share before we go?
Oh man. Well, you know what? When we were talking about specifically manifestation or prosperity or creating what you want, human design is a tool I return to over and over and again with my coaching clients because it levels both of us up to the real crux of certain issues that are innate, like right away. So I love it because we don't waste too much time getting to work. And that's what I love about our relationship too. It's like we just get right to it. Just get like, where's the pain point? What is it? Okay, jump on it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Oh, I love it. That's why I love you too, my brother. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. I hope that you learned something. At the very least, you learned about me. And a lot. But definitely, I can't recommend Human Design enough. Check out ahramarya.org. And also check out owenjward.com. There's some good stuff there, and we'll have some more information for you as well. But thank you so much, Ahram, for taking the time today. Thank you for this reading. Go hit him up. And that's it. I will talk to you tomorrow, everybody.
See ya.
Dude. Gangbusters.